G'day fellas, and welcome to a tier list. It's been a while since we've done one, but I figured, hey, what a great time to do it because we've got a new mechanic and subsequently it's time that we start rating them. Now, first and foremost, before we get into this tier list, it's important that you understand it is subjective. It means that perhaps your view is a little bit different from mine, and that is okay. That's what makes us human. That's what makes us different. But we'll be dividing all of these technologies. We've got 9 technologies here. We're going to be putting them into a tier list and just talking about the way that they synergize with the civilization. So let's focus a little bit on, initially we'll explain what it is we're actually doing and what it is we're looking at. So we're looking at the Imperial Council for the Ottomans. So they get 9 unique technologies that are available to them throughout the ages. And you have a first tier, a second tier, and a third tier. To get to the third tier, you need to access one tech in the second tier. To access the second tier, you need to get one in the first tier, and so on and so forth. So you've only got access to 5 Vizier points in or out of these 9 technologies, and each Vizier point you can unlock a tech. So you can only ever get 5 out of the 9 techs. However, if you opt to go with the Istanbul Imperial Palace, then that increases your Vizier point limit by 2 and puts you up to a potential 7 out of 9 techs, which isn't too bad. But if I'm being honest with you guys, I think the Mehmed Imperial Armory is by far the best landmark available out of these 2, and I would be surprised to see this one really stay around in the meta for too long. We've seen players sort of testing it, but yeah, to me it doesn't really seem like there's a huge payoff. It sort of caps out very quickly. But without further ado, let's get into it and let's talk about what are the best, what are the worst technologies. We'll start it off with your Age 1 technologies because they're going to be the most important, the ones that you run into. I say Age 1, but they're your Tier 1 technologies. So that includes Anatolian Hills, Meta Drums, and Fieldwork. So Fieldwork is an interesting one, but we're going to start it off with Anatolian Hills because, in my opinion, this Imperial Council tech is very, very good. Now, I'm not going to go ahead and say it's S tier because I do think there are ways that you can play without this, but I am going to put this one in the A tier. I think this is a very solid tech. It gives you access to 2,000 food underneath your town center, nice and safe. Also increases the villager mining speed by 10% for the rest of the game. So it's going to be giving you just a constant trickle in of those, those extra resources from mining. So I think it's a really nice way to open. The thing to note though is it does have, I would say, not whatever the opposite of synergy is, like I don't know, antigy or something like that. It doesn't really synergize well with the most common landmark that we are seeing for the Ottomans, which is the Twin Minaret Madrasa. And this landmark here is the big mill, essentially, that grows the 4 berry bushes around it. And when you think about it, right, like that's providing food, and then you're also getting food from this. It's like there's mitigating returns on the amount of food that you can get. But look, realistically, in the current meta, the more food that you can get, the better, because it's going to delay your farm transition. But at the same time, you got to question at what cost. Now, the next one we're going to be taking a look at here is Fieldwork. So Fieldwork is another Tier 1 that's available to you. So it spawns 2 imams at the landmark town center, and imams area heal nearby units for 1 health every second. So it actually unlocks this ability for the imams to have an AoE healing, and it's not capped. You can have like 6 imams all healing up at the same time, all healing up everything by 6 health per second. So it's kind of wild. Obviously, it also spawns 2 imams at the town center, which means that you can get these in the Dark Age, you can get them in the Feudal Age, and at the moment, I'm going to be putting this probably in around the B tier, maybe even in the C tier. I think it's decent, and there is a definite position for this. And the position for this, in my opinion, it's right before you age up to the second age, or rather into the third age, and you're in a matchup that really dictates tempo control over the relics. So that's in matchups against the Rus, against the Holy Roman Empire, and against the Delhi. These are civilizations that really focus on picking up those relics as quickly as possible. Obviously, there are other matchups that you're going to have, like the Abbasid dynasty, but those don't really focus too much on picking up relics. Abbasid, China, even the French, it's not, they don't really play a lot around relics. So I think it loses a lot of its value here. But the real value that you're going to be getting from Fieldwork is having 2 imams ready to go. So as soon as you hit the castle age, you can just immediately pick up relics and bring them back to your town. And look, you don't even have to put them into a mosque. You just bring them back to your town, go out and pick up the next 2. Super duper easy to do. And you can go put these guys out very far away on the field, over right next to the enemy base, and pick them up, snipe those little relics out before the enemy even has a chance. So I think there's a lot of potential with this technology. The third one, it's going to be meta drums. Now, meta drums is something that I don't feel too passionate about. So it gives you a meta, so 180 resources. We can take a look. Now, interestingly, I don't think the meta actually comes up in the stable or in the archery range. I don't know where it is hidden, but I can tell you it does come up in the military school. I don't think it's got the cost. Let's have a look. Oh, it does have the cost. So it's 180 resources. So you're getting 180 resources from the meta drums because it gives you one meta. But the big thing is that it increases move speed to units in the same formation by 15%. Now, this is a little bit clunky. The way that it works, I mean, essentially you want to try and pair it up with cavalry. But I think the issue is that with formations and the way that it works in Age of Empires 4 and the fact that everything wants to run in a formation and get itself in a formation, that it can actually be a negative to keep a lot of units in the same formation. As an example, try putting a mangonel, a spearman, an archer, and a man-at-arms all in the same group, and then watch how slow they go as they try and wait to get into formation because of the mangonel. It's really frustrating to watch. And to me, this encourages players to utilize a part of the game mechanics that isn't really in a good spot. So I'm not a fan of this. I really don't like it. I do like the idea of that 15% movement speed, but to be honest, I think that it should just be changed so that the meta is just always providing that 15% movement speed. But look, maybe that makes it a bit too strong. I'm going to be putting it in my tier list. I'm going to be putting this down in the D tier, and I'm going to be avoiding this one pretty much all the time, unfortunately. But we move on now to the second tier. So the second tier has got three new technologies. The first one is Military Campus, which increases military schools that can be built by +1. We've got Siege Crews, which allow siege engines to be garrisoned by infantry. While garrisoned, attack and setup speed is increased by 25%. And then we've got the third one, which is Trade Bags, increases the amount of gold traders collect by 40%. So we're going to start it off with Trade Bags. Unfortunately, trade bags not the strongest at the moment in the current meta. Now, look, there's good synergy for this, and I would argue that in the future, there's going to be potential for this guy to become very, very strong, and I wouldn't be surprised to see it because it's 40% extra gold. And you guys might be thinking, 40% extra gold, that's not that big, and, trade's not that important. Well, hold on a minute. When you think about, okay, well, what if we opened with the Sultan Hani trade network, and then we're thinking about going to Imperial Gate, we get the Seagate Castle. This ain't the Western Digital Keep, this is the Seagate Castle, and it increases your movement speed by 40% as well. So now you got 40% movement speed and 40% more gold. You can start to see where the synergy is lying. So I would just say, look, hold your horses about this one. At the moment in the current meta, that's where it sits. It would be sitting in the D tier, and that would be it. The next two ones, Military Campus and Siege Crews. Now, this comes down to the way that you play the Ottomans. For me, personally, I've reviewed the numbers, and I'm a big fan of military schools. I think they're amazing. I just think that they take a little bit of time. And at the moment in the meta, you don't really have a lot of time spare. We've seen some players just completely avoiding military schools. I'm not even kidding you. I watched a game with Casper. He played 40 minutes as the Ottomans and didn't make a single military school. And I was like, okay, I'll be honest with you guys. I don't want to talk shit about Casper, but Caspar definitely took a fair bit of time to adjust to Age of Empires 4. I remember playing games against him, and I noticed all the other guys were getting quite good, but Caspar, it felt like he was struggling. Now, obviously, he's an incredibly talented player right now, but I think when it comes to learning new civilizations, Caspar to me feels like the kind of guy, he just jumps in and plays, and he doesn't necessarily read or theory craft. He just jumps in and plays, and he just tests things out himself. And I feel like, I don't know whether he's missed the military school completely, whether he just doesn't value it, but he just completely just went, I'm not going to do it. So look, if that's the way that you play Military Campus, chuck it in D tier. But for me, I'm a big fan of the military school. I reckon that the more military schools that you can get, the better. And so as a result, I'm going to be putting this in the S tier. I think this is 100% a mandatory one for you to be picking up in your games. Now, in addition to that, the second thing that I'm going to also say is Siege Crews is mandatory. So Siege Crews, another technology that's in that second tier, it's also going to be going in the S tier. Why? Well, we talked earlier about the meta, the fact that they can improve movement speed with this technology. Well, they also have the ability to improve attack speed at the same time. And what you can do is improve your attack speed, and that affects siege units with the meta. And then you can get siege crews. So you throw a spearman, you throw an archer inside of your siege, and that increases it by 25% as well. So now you've got these absolutely insanely fast firing siege crews. And think about this, right? This affects absolutely all of your siege. It affects your springalds. So it means that when you're fighting springalds up against enemy springalds, now not only are you getting off you know, your shots at the enemy, but you're getting off your second shots faster. And because you get the second shots off faster, it means that your Springles aren't trading now with your enemy, but rather they are just killing the enemy, and it subsequently builds up that advantage. And obviously this gets extended out. All your Mangonels are now going to be firing faster. Your Trebuchets are going to be firing faster, which means they're doing more damage. And of course, the Great Bombard is going to be firing much faster. And of course, the Great Bombard is the king of the Ottoman Empire. Now, we don't know exactly how it's going to play out at the moment. I've read stuff from Beastie. Beastie said that he's not a particularly big fan of the Great Bombard just because it loses out to the Culverin really badly. And it seems like a lot of civs have access to the Culves. I think both, I'll have to double check, but I'm pretty sure both the Ottomans and the Malians do get access to the Culverin. No, it's the Rebaldequin here. So the Malians get it. The Holy Roman Empire get it, and then the Abbasid dynasty get it, and then the French also get it. So, you know, 4 out of the 10 civs have got access to it. But yeah, look, I think that there's a very nice little synergy that you could eventually find in with siege crews, janissaries repairing up the siege out on the field. You know, you're not going to have to pull villagers, that kind of thing. And I suspect that with the way that the Ottomans plays, they play, in my mind, they play very similar to Chinese. You want to try and take it late. You want to try and get full advantage of your military schools, and that's going to be in the late game. You want to try and combine that with the MIA, the Mehmed Imperial Armory. I'm going to get it eventually. Don't worry, guys. But that's the way I'm thinking, and that would be for the second tier. So now we move on to the third tier, the final tier that is available to you. So that's going to be your faster training. So increases production of military schools by 25%. That is going to be, let me see if I can find it, Advanced Academy, which outfits military schools with the ability to produce knights and janissaries, and then Janissary Company spawns 2 janissaries for each of your military schools at the landmark town center. Now, I'm going to start off by saying I don't like this one, Janissary Company. The idea is cool, but unfortunately, it just doesn't have a lot of oomph. If you had unlimited points that you could spend instead of just 5, I'd be totally down for Janissary Company. I think it's such a, you know, it's a cool tech. I'm going to put it in the C tier, just because there is the off chance that perhaps this may save you. Maybe the enemy's under your town center. Maybe it's a big mass of cavalry. You got lancers in your base, and all of a sudden you've got a vizier point that's just popped because maybe you had a spearman that came out of your military school, and you're getting overrun your villagers. You don't have enough space in the town center for your villagers. The knights are killing them. Bam. You hit this button. You get yourself a whole bunch of janissaries, maybe, you know, 6 janissaries, because remember, it's each existing military school. So let's say, you know, let's give you the benefit of the doubt and say you're in the castle age and you've got all 3 of your military schools, and you've got a military campus, which gives you the 4th one, and you've built them, and you're still under attack, still under pressure. Well, now you hit this button, you get 8 janissaries, it holds the push, and now, you know, maybe you're able to win. So that's the one situation I can see it being good. But other than that, there's really, like, it is incredibly niche of a situation that I would ever see this even being a possibility to be viable. So that is why it would sit in the C tier. Next up, we're going to have fast training. So this increases the production of military schools by 25%. Now, as I've said before, I'm a big fan of military schools. I think you want to try and maximize your efficiency with them. And subsequently, I think fast training is another S tier technology that should be picked up 100% of the time when you are playing as the Ottomans. But obviously, this is with the bias that I am playing a certain way. I'm playing for that late game. I'm playing the same way the Chinese would play. It's all about hitting that timing with the big army in the late game and surviving and making it through, and then eventually overcoming your enemy with just superior numbers. So I think faster training makes a lot of sense. When you can combine this with things like the Imperial landmark that is available to you, the Istanbul Observatory, which gives you 60%. So now all of a sudden you've got 60%, and then throw on top of that the extra 25%. So you've got a whole bunch of much faster producing units, and it just really helps bolster the units as they're coming out. So I think this is a great technology, one that you definitely can't skip in the late game. And then the final technology that we've got coming out, it is Advanced Academy, outfits military schools with the ability to produce knights and janissaries. This one also, in my opinion, it is S tier. I think this is really good. Now, one of the things that we've seen is players sort of testing out different units as to what they're going to build and where they're going to build them with the military schools. So there was a post that was done on Reddit. I'm not gonna link it. You guys can just trust me. And essentially, everything is even when it comes to the military schools for the resources to the time that it takes. So basically, the way that you do it is you look at the cost of let's say, a spearman. And it costs 80 resources. And then you look at the military school and you say, okay, well, how long does the military school take to produce that spearman? And you can work out the essential value that you're getting from that. You can then do that for the archer, for the Sparky, and for every other unit that you've got access to. The knight, by far, has the greatest value that you can have. Now, whether you need knights right now or whether you need knights in this matchup, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you're getting the most value. You're getting the most bang for buck by having the knight. In addition to that, the Janissary is also available, and it's got a pretty good return on investment just simply because there's gold here. You can see a heavy cost for gold, 60 food, 100 gold. And so it makes sense to unlock this because, look, you could be producing the crossbow, but it's 80 and 40. Food is readily available. Gold, not so much. So you really want to be maximizing your efficiency with this, and that's what that technology allows you to do. The tech allows you to maximize that efficiency and really pull out for a bit more on it. So look, I do think it's a solid S tier. So if I'm playing the Ottomans, now remember, I'm just a Conqueror 1 or Conqueror 2 scrub at the moment. I'm barely playing Age of Empires 4. I'm nowhere near the level of Beastie, and I'm sure his opinion will differ vastly from mine. But if I'm playing at the moment, your standard opening's probably going to look something like Anatolian Hills, rather, and then from there, looking to move into military campus, and then eventually, Siege Cruise probably comes a bit later on in the game, but there's no reason why you can't pick it up early on. But fast training, and then looking to pick up the Advanced Academy as well, nice and early. But these are the 5 that are going to be the most important. Fast training, Anatolia Hills, Military Campus, Siege Cruise, Advanced Academy. And obviously, it depends on the game that you're playing. As I mentioned, Fieldwork might be really good in a matchup against the Holy Roman Empire. Janissary Company might be really good against the French if you're getting pushed in the feudal age. And, you need Janissaries in a beat. And trade bags might be really good once trade becomes relevant. But at the moment, players are sticking to what they know, and what they know is 2 TCs in a fast castle, 2 TCs into feudal age push, 3 TCs in a feudal age defense. There's all these different things, but unfortunately, trade is not one of them. Well, fellas, I'm curious what you guys think and how accurate you think this list is. If there's anything else that that you think we should talk about, let me know. Other than that, I think we've covered it all. Obviously, we talked a little bit about the Imperial Palace as well. The fact that it gives you those extra 2 points. It doesn't really change the way that this system works, in my opinion. I think it just gives you a little bit more flexibility in the early game. If you say, okay, I'm going to come into a game and I'm going to go for the Imperial Palace. Hold on, I got to get this right. The Istanbul Imperial Palace. No, it is the Imperial Palace. So the Istanbul Imperial Palace, if you come in saying, I'm going to do this, then you can say, all right, well, maybe I want to start off with Anatolia Hills, and then maybe I want to get Fieldwork, and then maybe I want to get Meta Drums, and then I will go into Fast Training, Military Campus, Siege Cruise, and Advanced Academy. There's different ways that you can play, but obviously in doing that, then you somewhat neglect a huge amount of your siege because the MIA is just so damn good. But other than that, fellas, that is absolutely it. We'll catch you guys in the next one, and I hope you guys are enjoying the new DLC. Thank you so much for watching.